Welcome to the Limitless Leaders podcast series brought to you by ASPS, the Aesthetic Society, and the American Hernia Society with the generous support of Allergan Aesthetics. My name is Dr. Ashley Amalfi, and I'm a board-certified plastic surgeon at the Quatella Center for Plastic Surgery in Rochester, New York, and I'm the chair of the ASPS Women Plastic Surgeons Forum and the Limitless Leaders Steering Committee member. Please join us for Season 2 of the Limitless Leaders podcast, where we dive into the stories of extraordinary women making a significant impact in our field, as well as the men who are supporting them to get there. We are breaking gender barriers and inspiring the next generation of leaders. You're listening to the Limitless Leaders podcast series brought to you by the ASPS, the Aesthetic Society, and the American Hernia Society with the generous support of Allergan Aesthetics. I'm Dr. Ashley Amalfi, a board-certified plastic surgeon in Rochester, New York at the Quatella Center for Plastic Surgery, and I am so excited about today's topic, playing with the boys, finding male sponsors, and the he for she movement. I have special guests with me today, Dr. Neumeister and Dr. Sedurna. Yes, you heard it right. I have two male special guests today to talk to us on the Limitless podcast about female leadership in surgery, and I couldn't be more excited about this. Both our speakers today have been mentors to me personally and extremely helpful and motivating as sponsors for me as a woman in plastic surgery. And I'm so excited for them to share everything they have to say with you guys today. I'm going to start by letting them introduce themselves, tell us a little about themselves and what they think about today's topic. So Dr. Neumeister, thank you so much for being with us. And will you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm at Southern Illinois University School of Medicine, have been for the last, 26 years or so. I'm the chair of the Department of Surgery and also the chief of the Institute for Plastic Surgery. So I've kind of worked my way up from a hand fellow here to the point, part of the leadership that I'm in right now. And a part, our program has always been one that believes in equity, that believes in diversity, and believes in women in plastic surgery. And in fact, it's hard to say, to say that phrase, believe in women. And I believe in everyone in plastic surgery. I believe in men and women, and I don't think we should be treating them as unequal. So that's kind of the basis of the philosophy. Ironically, compared to most programs, I think we have always been at least 50% women since I've been there, and sometimes up to about 80% women in our program.
Yeah, when I was a resident there, one of the years there was 9 of 12 women. So absolutely the majority at SIU, and it makes it an amazing place. Dr. Sedurna, will you tell us a little bit about your background?
Oh, thanks, Ashley. And hey, Mike, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So I am really excited to be on this podcast tonight. So I am at the University of Michigan. I am I'm about a 38th year medical student here. And still working on graduating slowly. But I actually ultimately have become chief of plastic surgery here at the University of Michigan. I have a very broad general practice. I run a big research lab, do a lot of teaching, and enjoy all of those things. I would say our program has typically over half of our residents are women. We have 28 residents in the program. So we have always had women well represented in our training program. And when I became the chief, we had 1 female faculty member, and we now have 7. So I'm super excited about that.
That's amazing.
Not excited that we have added women in general, but the fact that we have just added incredibly talented and gifted people to join our faculty. They just happen to be women. So I'm really excited for the conversation tonight and looking forward to it.
That's awesome, you guys. So, I mean, he for she, the definition of he for she is really, it's an invitation for people of all genders, men, but really anyone to stand in solidarity with women. So it's not about, women fighting this battle for equality. It's about everyone just recognizing that there shouldn't be any difference and being there with them to build their business, raise their families, and contribute to their career or their community. Are you guys familiar with this name for this topic, and how so has it come across for you?
Well, I'm certainly familiar with that, and I hope that I've been thrown into that category. I think it
That's why
has.
you're here, you guys.
Oh, good. I don't know. I thought.
Because I certainly feel that way about both of you. And when we had the idea to do this topic, it was pretty clear from the get go. I was like, oh, we're gonna do this with Neumeister and Sedurna, and it's gonna be really awesome. So we certainly feel that way about you, but I'm kind of curious as to how you both view that.
So the other thing is, I think in a leadership role like we have, like I have, like Paul has too, it's our responsibility as leaders to provide fairness and equity and embrace people, anyone who wants to practice plastic surgery. I mean, the main goal is to create competent, confident plastic surgeons when they leave our programs. And we've been very successful in doing that, I believe, and a vast majority of them have been women. So we're attaining the goal. We have a civil obligation and a community obligation to train women, to make them a part of our discipline, and they contribute an enormous amount to our discipline and to our communities.
I've always felt that, what you just said, that when I'm with you, I feel like I'm a plastic surgeon. I don't feel like I'm a female plastic surgeon or a woman plastic surgeon, or like I have to be any different or I'm seen as any different. I've always felt very much equal. And that's not true in all situations, in all environments, at all institutions. And I think, for me, it was super compelling to train in that environment for, 6 years and see what things could be if they were actually equitable. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about everything I do for WPS and women plastic surgeons, because I see the value in this just not being an issue anymore, and there actually being equality for everyone across the board. And so I think it's possible. I don't think we're there yet, but I do think that there are sort of these little like Shangri-La microcosms of where this is actually working. And that's why I'm so excited to kind of dive into this deeper. Dr. Sedurna, what do you think about sort of that idea of he for she?
So, the interesting thing about it is I couldn't agree more with everything that you said. I mean, we're having this discussion now, I think, because more than anything, we have to continue to raise awareness for everyone that there still are inequities. There are inequities in academia. There are inequities in how people are treated in their local communities, in their local hospitals, everywhere. And so by us talking about these things, we can raise the awareness of it and hopefully then eliminate that as an issue. And then we're just talking about surgeons taking care of patients, surgeons doing research, surgeons leading societies, all those things. And, and I had a bit of a special experience when I was younger because my wife was a resident with me. And I remember just hearing all the things that she would share with me that she was going through at the time that we were residents. And half the time I'm going, what happened? Are you serious? And I would just be shaking my head going, oh my God, first of all, I can't believe it. And second of all, half the time, the first thing that comes to my mind is what a jerk that kind of thing happened. So we want to get to a place where we're not saying, oh my God, that happened. Or we don't have, female residents having to take like a piece of tape and put it over their name badge and just write doctor across it, so they're not called by their first name, even though all the male residents are called by doctor.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's an interesting example that I see every single day.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going, oh my God, we just have to keep talking about it, talking about it as many places as we can so people are aware of it. And when they're aware of it, then hopefully then we can positively impact it.
Yeah.
So I really want to positively impact it in any way I can.
I think it's so interesting that, to sort of have a wife in medicine and to see, what it's like. We have a dual physician family too. And to just have started our careers at the same time and be going through the same things, but experiencing them totally differently. It's been really eye-opening. And, the other interesting thing was, back when I was in academics and I had male partners, I was the first female in my program for over 20 years. And the things that would come up, I would share with some of my junior male partners who became really good friends. And it was pretty eye-opening for them too, Paul, like where they're like, wow, just to listen to you talk about it and how you've experienced that is really eye-opening for me. And I think that had I not been there to share with them how I was experiencing these things, I don't think that they would have seen it. Do you kind of feel like that with your wife too? Like it helped almost like open your eyes to the fact that these things are actually really happening?
Seriously, when she was a resident, they had actually, our name badges all had our names on them and Dr. So and so, their name, and they all were all called by their first name. All the women were called by their first name.
Yeah.
And all of us were called by doctor and then our
Yeah.
last name. And it was just remarkable to me. And then the way that they were treated around the hospital was so different too, because I remember on some of the services, nurses would go out of their way to do things for you, but for a lot of the female residents, it'd just be like, do it yourself. And there were just just huge differences in how people were even treated. And gosh, we can't have that at all. It doesn't make any sense. It's not good for patient care. It's not good for the environment we all work in. It's not good for teamwork. And medicine is a team sport. It's not an individual sport. So we all need to be working together in the same ways.
And I think we've also seen it at some of the national meetings when people are introduced and they go up to the podium, that they get a woman might be introduced by her first name, followed by the next speaker by Dr. Jones or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
It happens to be a male. So, we have a lot, as Paul mentioned, awareness. We have a lot of teaching to do and showing people where they're making these critical errors and just how they're treating people.
Yeah. I'm curious in your careers, what has your experience been with, how far we've come? Have you seen meaningful change? Are there things that you used to see? SIU has a long history of training female residents. Are there things that you see now as progress? And what do you think are the bigger battles that we need to fight now compared to what they looked like when you both started your careers?
Well, I can tell you, and Paul knows this too, we've both put on various hats and we've had common hats, including being chair of the American Board of Plastic Surgery and chair of the RRC. And and you know this very well, actually, because you were one of the impetus for this, of how we now give 12 weeks off, or there's a potential to take 12 weeks off if you are having particular issues during pregnancy or with children at home. It used to be very strict, where you had 48 weeks in a year that you have to be in those didactic sessions and in the OR and in the clinics, and they still want you to get the education that you need, but at the same time they realize that my gosh, there are times when out of any control of yours that you need to have more time off for your safety, for the safety of your children, and for the family. And so both the American Board of Plastic Surgery and the RRC have taken actually a little bit of a lead role in this compared to some societies and RRCs, and adopted this 12-week extra time off during your residency. So that's a big, big
Yeah,
change.
that's huge. And that's for
So,
all residents, right? Not just female residents. Like if a male
yeah.
resident is going to stay home with a child or a family member or
So,
Yep.
so Ashley, let me explain that a little bit better. So Mike is totally right. So Mike worked with me at the ABPS when we did this, and it was originally going to be a maternity paternity leave of absence policy.
Mhm.
And then I started working with Joan Lipa and Deb Johnson. And they're
Right.
like, yeah, if you make it a maternity leave, paternity leave thing, people are not going to accept that. So then we decided that we would actually convert it to a leave of absence overall. So if anyone, their house burned down, their dog died, their grandma died, they got sick themselves, they had a mental illness issue, they had burnout, whatever somebody needed to have a leave of absence for, they could have it.
Yeah.
But we were worried. We've come a long way, but we were really worried if we had just made it like a maternity, paternity leave, policy that we couldn't get it through. And
Yeah.
even making it what we did, it was a struggle. It took 3 years,
That's
but
wild.
it got through, and we have it now. And it is probably one of the things I'm most proud of in my professional career is making that happen. And there were so many angry phone calls with the ABMS and other groups because they didn't want to put a leave of absence policy into place.
It's so wonderful. I mean, it's just got to be so influential for so many people. It would have been a godsend for me to have, but I'm glad that it's different, for people who are training these days. And I think it's, huge kudos to both of you for making something like that happen. What kind of things do you guys do in your own programs, or advice do you have for other programs on how to just be more flexible, related to the female residents that they have, whether it be, pregnancy or other needs that they may have? Because I think that sometimes the rules and structure is so rigid that the inflexibility of plastic surgery training is sometimes deterring women from applying.
Yeah, there is black and white rules and regulations and such. The reality is that every program director and every chief or chair of the department or division has some latitude to be able to work with the people. Anyone who has certain needs within the program, and if you can imagine, we should be thinking of these folks. And it's what we do at our institution is they're essentially our family. And for me, it would be my daughters, it might be the grandchildren for Paul, because he's a little bit older. Um,
and I actually do spoil them with espresso and chocolate at 11 o'clock at night. So
yeah, and puppies. He usually has puppies for them too, I'm pretty sure.
Oh my gosh.
Here's a puppy. Take this home.
That's
Your family.
that's
But
very easy for residents. Yes.
if you think about folks, what would you do for your own family? Well, you love them to death. So you would do everything. And if there's a certain need that they need, you'll go out of your way to make sure that is taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it takes from you or the people around you, and they know it. And so the residents, whether they be male or female, should have that um, insight, ability to approach you and say, I have a need without any fear of, come on, you got work to do. You just get out
Yeah.
there and, you know how I did it when I was your age.
Yeah.
Um, those attitudes need to stop. And again, if we think of the folks as this is my daughter, this is my son, my gosh, you would open so many doors for people because you love them to death.
But I do think this leads then into something that you can be very deliberate in what you do. People who are in leadership roles can be very deliberate in who they're selecting to be their residency program director and their associate program director.
Yeah.
And you need the right people that have the right attitude, that have the right interest, and that are really, really excited about promoting everybody equally, supporting everyone equally, ensuring that when people need something, whether it's a male resident or a female resident, that they're there for them. And frankly, I
Yeah.
mean, we've randomly said it takes 6 years to be a plastic surgeon. I mean, those are our rules. But now we have, competency-based advancement and all those sorts of things. And frankly, if the program director is good and someone needs some time off, they can make it work. There's enough flexibility in the schedule and everything that they can make it work, because somebody that isn't healthy for whatever reason or needs time off for whatever reason, they're not going to be able to learn in the way they need to, and they are not going to be able to perform in the way they need to, and they need that time to be healthy and to feel well supported and all those things. And so that's so important. And I think you can make that happen by picking the right people to serve in those roles, to ensure that you are, because I think of it the same way Mike does, and Ashley, I'm sure you do too, is, for me, it's my Michigan plastic surgery family, and you take care of your family like you take care of your family, and every family's got their warts, but you still take care of each other like no one else.
Yeah. It's such a refreshing approach that both of you have. And I think that, so many people could benefit from just hearing how important that is, and where those values should be with the people that they're teaching and educating. You know, extrapolating on that, what's your approach when you're hiring female faculty? Because I know both of you, how you feel and how you support female trainees, but you also both equally support female faculty. And in fact, you're both champions of female faculty. What is your philosophy on that?
So, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, it was interesting because when I just became chief, we had one female faculty member, and we had over half our residents were women, and every single one of them wanted, our one female faculty member to be their mentor.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of good mentorship from a lot of people in a lot of different ways, but there's some things that, you can just, you can relate to certain people more than other people. And if you're a female resident, having female role models, I think, is critically important.
Yeah.
And so for me, I would never hire somebody that I didn't think was amazing.
Yeah.
But I would also say that I would actively recruit and have actively recruited female faculty members, because it is so important to have really talented and gifted people who are out there everywhere, but also then people that can serve as great role models and mentors and educators and all those things. And even some of our patients would prefer a female doctor over a male doctor, and we should be able to provide that for them. There's just so many benefits to it. And even if you look more broadly, if you look at Fortune 500 companies, those companies that have more diversity in that company are more successful in those that do not. And diversity comes in all forms, including gender. And so I just think to be a strong, incredibly powerful team that does all the things that you need to do, be good doctors, be good educators, be good scientists, be good leaders, be good mentors, all those things, you need plenty of female faculty members. And so it's really important.
To me, it's a matter of being. Plastic surgery is all about the innovation, but before you get there, there's an enthusiasm, and that enthusiasm drives creativity, which drives the innovation. And if the environment is right, you will have that amongst the faculty and the residents. But the residents need good role models in order for them to see that as well. And I want them to open the door every day they come to work and go, God, I love coming to work. This is so good. Because of that enthusiasm, it'll drive the creativity and innovation. So without appropriate role models, they may never see that and then actually have the opposite. I want to go home. I want to leave here. I think if they're happy at home as well, they bring that happiness to work. So again, that helps drive the enthusiasm. So we need the role models, and many times people will migrate to folks that are very similar to them, which is okay. And in this case, it might be a female resident who wants the role model or sees another female faculty as their role model. And so for the betterment of our discipline, I think we need more women in faculty roles and role model roles, so the residents can take advantage of that.
Well, I mean, it's a great topic, right? And I think I had so much female visibility and so fortunate to train at such a female supportive program like SIU. And and then I went into an academic career, and it was honestly the antithesis of that. And that's not an isolated event, unfortunately. Just being honest, academics for women, probably, and certainly not in both of your institutions, but in most institutions, is a pretty leaky pipeline for women. It's inflexible. It's not supportive in the ways that both of you are talking about. And for many women, they leave and they go private, and that flexibility just suits their lifestyle a little bit better. And it's just such a sad loss of talent in academics, because those are the people who are training the next generation of plastic surgeons for the most part. And so, both of you guys have amazing programs that really don't reflect that. But what do you have to say about what we can do to get the other programs up to the standards and the level of support that you both show your female faculty?
So one thing I would say about this process is for a leader in this role, I think it takes courage to do something that has not really been done before in a place. Because anytime you start making big changes, it becomes difficult for a lot of people, particularly those people who enjoy the way things were and like the way they were and aren't really that interested in that change.
Right.
And so it takes courage for a leader to, first of all, change the makeup of the faculty, change the makeup of their residency by getting people there. There was one time we had just finished a resident interview day, and we had gone through, and all the candidates had been scored for the day. And this was probably about 10 years ago. And we're halfway through this meeting, and I see that our top 10 on our rank list are all men. And I just stopped in the middle, and I said, wait a minute. We have some data, but not really any data. We're just all sharing opinions. And I'm looking at the top 10, and it is all men, and this cannot stay. So we now need to change this list because this is not appropriate, whether people were doing it on purpose or whether they were subconsciously doing it or it just sort of happened that way. It required awareness that had happened. And I don't think anyone overtly was doing anything, but it had happened. And then it took courage for me to, in the middle of this big group, say, okay, I think we're a little off base here and we have to reevaluate everything a little bit. So let's spend some time and do that. Yeah. And I think that takes courage. And then once you have them, you have to promote and get more people out. And then the more women we have in these academic roles, the more we'll be interested in doing them because there'll be more role models.
Right.
And the more time they're spending at the podium and on panels and in leadership roles, the more will be brought in. And so I think the thing really feeds on itself.
Actually, I was going to say that's kind of an interesting question. What would we do with other programs? The easy answer might be, well, if a chief or a chair of a certain program is not embracing equity the way it should be, that, okay, just get a new chief or chair. Oh, there you go. And then solve the problem. But it might be more than that, because it could be embedded further into the system, as Paul mentioned.
The culture, yeah.
Yeah, his wife, males may miss it because they're so attuned to their own world. They don't see some of the bias that's out there. And so I think what we need is bias training. And I think universities are doing a better job at that. But our societies need to do it as well. And one of the ways you could start with that is to have programs where, secretly you identify people that you think have a little bit of a problem with this, put them on the panel so they get to dive into it and be somewhat accountable, not accusing them of anything, but rather help them work through
Learn.
certain aspects of this. And I think they may see it as an eye-opening situation if that happened.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and Mike, I agree with that 100%. So I'll tell you, it's quite a few years ago. My daughter, who's a therapist, was sitting at some meeting in Chicago, and the meeting was about women in academia and advancement of women in academia. And the big slide, with the title slide of the panel, was up there: advancement of women in academia, and it was all men on the panel.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And she takes a picture of it, and she sends it to me, and she's like, "Dad, you don't do this, do you?" And I'm like, At that time, chances were I was on a number of panels that were only men, and it was a hugely obvious thing to her, and wasn't as obvious a thing for me, but it became obvious the second that happened, for sure. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. That's for sure. And we need to work on it.
And I think people are just unaware of it, right? Because when they're making panels, they're picking their friends, and these
Yeah.
are people they know, and it's not outside of their comfort zone. And I've heard things, in my planning for meetings, like, oh well, how do we know that she's a good speaker? She could be a wild card, she's unknown, and everyone is essentially unknown until they get up there, and we
Yeah.
recognize their talent. And so yeah, I mean, the term that the ladies all use for these kind of panels is manels, and I'm sure you guys have all heard that too. But I think that there needs to be an end to manels, because the reality is that like half the trainees are women, and so if they're not seeing women on the podium, how are they going to be inspired to move into these leadership roles and to want to be KOLs in our field if they're not seeing anyone who looks like them up there doing it? And I think you're right. I think the first thing we need to do is kind of look to the right and left of us and recognize that this really is happening. And it's, unfortunately, despite our best efforts, it's still happening. I think it's so great to hear new voices and to not hear the same like recycled talks and, the same PowerPoint photos that we've been seeing for 20 years. And I think that getting women up there is great. What we've been doing on the sidelines to make that happen is WPS. Our women's meeting now is a very CME heavy meeting, and we have female speakers, on all topics, not just aesthetic surgery or private practice surgery. And it's been an amazing sort of trial run for women to just feel confident presenting, because that's the other half of it too, is that if they're not seeing people like themselves presenting, they're probably not comfortable doing it, or they have imposter syndrome. And so WPS has been like a smaller platform for them to feel really comfortable, get the kinks out, and we've vetted some amazing talent, and then can push those speakers to the national podium, which has been just a great way to do it. But it's almost sad to me that I have to do that, right? That I have to vet these women so that when I sit there, I can tell everyone that they deserve to be there. Because we probably promote male colleagues and don't think so much if they're worthy of that sort of recognition or podium.
And that's where the leadership comes too. I mean, when we talk before about he for she, leaders in our program, whether they are male or female, need to provide confidence to junior female faculty to say that you have this information, you have the ability, you have a lot to say here. You are as good as that guy up there speaking right now. So next year it's going to be you, or whatever door you open. I think it's our responsibility as leaders in this specialty to make sure that we give confidence. Again, sort of like your daughters. If they lacked any confidence, you know them on a personal level, and you know that they are great kids. Maybe in the social arena, they are quieter. And so that's where we as parents need to boost them, coach them, mentor them, work with them to give them that confidence. We need to be the same as leaders in plastic surgery.
And as leaders, the one other thing is, I think, I remember in the past when I was making a big point about making sure that there are women on every panel and a bunch of the meetings that I was helping to organize. I remember hearing people say things like, well, there really aren't any women that are experts in this. And I'm going, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That is just ridiculous.
You just don't know them.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
right. And so, we've just got to make sure that we're committed to it. And it will just make every single program better, and every opportunity we can give people is so incredibly important, because then everything else starts growing from that. And then these people become more visible, and then they assume more leadership roles, and they assume more leadership roles. And next thing you know, then more women in leadership roles give everyone more hope and inspiration that they can achieve the same thing,
Yeah. And that's, obviously a change that we're really seeing, which has been really positive. And honestly, in the last few years, we've seen so many more women rise to big leadership positions and women in presidential roles of our societies. And I think it's wonderful to see those tides turn. And I'm wondering, what you both have seen as in your professional careers, because you're both so involved in our society. How do you see that changing, and where do you think we're going with women in leadership roles?
I think you're right. I think we're going to be seeing more and more women, and a lot of it has to do with the great female role models. And suddenly, the more junior folks out there can see that, my gosh, look what they can do. They do it as well as anyone. And the other thing is, there's different perspectives. Bringing in diversity brings in different perspectives.
Yeah.
Paul mentioned before that many companies are looking for diversity because it improves their bottom line. Well, our bottom line involves patient care, and I can't think of any of our female faculty that don't provide the top-notch patient care. And that's, in my mind, the more we see them on the podium, we see them in leadership roles. I think that our junior residents that are female are going to see that and go, I want to be like that person. I can do this. And they have a lot to offer.
And I'm super excited because we're actually seeing it in a lot of different environments. So this past weekend, the Plastic Surgery Research Council just happened, and there have been very few women who have been chairman of the PSRC, very few. But Allison Snyder Warwick is going to be hosting the 2025 meeting, and Justine Lee just got elected, and she'll be holding the 2026 meeting. So that's two women in a row chairing a big research plastic surgery society.
Yeah.
And on the aesthetic side, this coming weekend, I think Mindy Hawes is going to get sworn in as the next president of ASAPS, following a woman who is currently president of ASAPS. And so that's exciting to see, because that society hasn't had endless women in that role either. And so I think we're seeing more and more women assuming those roles. And we have great role models in like Mary McGrath and Susan McKinnon and Carolyn Kerrigan, and all of them who have helped pave the way a long time ago. And then people now, Deb Johnson and people like that who've really made a big difference. I think we're finally starting to see some of the impact of those active interventions.
Yeah. And I would say, for me, getting involved in leadership and moving up leadership, it's been really enlightening to see that in this level of leadership and in this environment, I truly think that some of the men have been equally champions of me and supportive of me, almost as much or sometimes more than even the women in leadership, because I think they're working so hard to get themselves where they are that I think it's sometimes easier for the men to sort of look and promote you. And, both of you have certainly done that for me as well. But there's quite a few men in my career who have been really great mentors, especially in regards to leadership and society leadership. And it's really refreshing and nice. And honestly, it really goes a long way. Like, it's one thing when women are supporting women, but when men stick their neck out for you, and really vouch for you, it really does mean a lot.
I can tell you, it also goes the other way. I can remember Linda Phillips being in the champion box for me on multiple occasions as well. So, I mean, she's a role model for me. So it can go the other way, where the males are using females as their role model as well.
That's really funny because actually, Lynn Jeffers was one of my residents. I love Lynn. Lynn was
Yeah.
like amazing. And Lynn was in leadership roles in ASPS way before I was. And Lynn just kept saying, "Are you ready for a leadership role? Because I want to promote you into a leadership role." And I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Oh,
And
cool. Yeah.
yeah, it was awesome. But like Lynn, when she was a medical student, already was like president of a bunch of stuff and everything, like this super talented person. But actually, to have then a younger woman helping to promote me in ASPS PSF was amazing too. So thanks, Lynn. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
I think that's really cool. It's really excited to see it kind of going both ways like that. I mean,
Yep.
so just kind of closing things out here, what do you guys think the future looks like for women in plastic surgery? I mean, if you look at these numbers, I think we're just tipping to either be equal or maybe just tipping the majority as far as applicants for plastic surgery training. What's your prediction? Do you think this is going to be a specialty where we will have sort of equal representation? Do you think that because we take care of a lot of female patients that it will tip the other way? Um, what do you both sort of see as the forecast for women in plastic surgery?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's probably going to go to so that we see more and more, and probably more than 50% of the plastic surgeons are going to be female. And male and females are very competent, and it's very difficult to choose folks into the residency programs now because they're so good compared to when Paul and I got in.
Yeah. No, wait, no. I'm just talking about myself when I say everyone else was so good.
It's
But there's
pretty, yeah, it's remarkable, right? I mean, these are just such talented people all around.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But again, they have so much to offer, and as the perspective that they give, and many, as you mentioned, many female patients say, I, I don't mind the male doctor, but I just seem to mesh with this female plastic surgeon. And we owe it to the public. We owe it to our patients to provide them with the safest, most comfortable care that we can give them. And so I think it will tip that we will be greater. There will be a greater number of women plastic surgeons relative to men.
Yeah, and I would agree with that 100%. I have no doubt in my mind that women will assume greater numbers of leadership roles in our national societies. They will assume more academic positions, and we will, as each year goes by, we will have more and more full professors in academic units, and we will have more practicing plastic surgeons nationwide. Greater than 50% will be women. I'm sure of that. I'm also hoping in academic centers that the models that we use, the old school models of, working a million hours and all that stuff, are going to become more flexible so that actually they will accommodate people that have
Mhm.
slightly different goals than others. Maybe we have opportunities like job sharing opportunities where someone is really just, they want to be an academician, but they only really want to work half time, and they're incredibly brilliant and talented and all those things. And we want that person.
Mhm.
But we just need to figure out, different models. Maybe their promotion clock gets, they get more time to achieve their, milestones for promotion and things like that. But I think that we are going to need to be more flexible in our academic models and everything so we can accommodate people of all varieties who would bring
Yeah.
value in those environments but don't quite fit into the old world traditional model set up centuries ago that just hasn't changed that much till today.
Those are all really exciting and refreshing ideas. And I think that you're both like right on track. I think that we're going to see all of these things in our careers. Is there anything else that you guys want to share or close out on the topic before we end here tonight?
I want to thank you for bringing this to the attention of many folks through this podcast. And you probably could have picked better speakers, but but thank you for bringing it online like this.
I think awareness is so important, and I think you're doing exactly that. This podcast is designed for a very specific reason of raising awareness to these issues, and I love it. Having more panels and discussions about these things in our national meetings is incredibly important and valuable for everyone. And so I hope to see more and more and more of this. And I am sure that there is momentum building now, and it will change. And I'm excited to be playing a tiny little part in all of that.
Well, to both of you, Dr. Neumeister and Dr. Sederna, thank you so much. This has been so great. And I think both of your opinions and everything that you shared has been so great that I think we might rope you into more discussions on this topic. So just be prepared for those invites. But this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and your kind and thoughtful leadership styles with us. I think it will be inspirational for many people who are listening. And we also want to thank Allergan so much for all of their support for Limitless Leaders. Thank you so much, everyone, and take care.
Thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Limitless Leaders podcast series, brought to you by ASPS, the Aesthetic Society, and the American Hernia Society, with the generous support of Allergan Aesthetics. We hope you enjoyed our conversation today and gained valuable insights and inspiration from our guests. Please check out other episodes of your favorite podcast platform. You can download them directly from ASPS EdNet. Stay tuned for new seasons, exciting new episodes where we will continue to celebrate and empower women leaders in plastic surgery and in general surgery. Thank you.